March 1944. Bougainville, Solomon Islands. Private First Class Ralph Chelly of the 93rd Infantry Division moves through jungles so dense he can't see 10 feet ahead. Japanese soldiers are somewhere in this terrain, maybe 50 yards away, maybe 5. In jungle warfare, distance doesn't matter. Visibility does. The 93rd Infantry Division, known as the Blue Helmets from their distinctive shoulder patch, is the first black division deployed to a combat theater in World War II. They're on Bougainville fighting Japanese forces that have held these islands for 2 years. The Army sent them here for limited action, mopping up bypassed enemy forces while Marine and Army divisions fight the real war elsewhere in the Pacific. The assignment reflects the Army's belief that black soldiers need easier missions, less intense combat, simpler objectives. Japanese forces on Bougainville didn't receive that memo. The 93rd faces veteran Japanese troops, fortified positions, and jungle terrain that eliminates every American advantage except one: the soldiers' determination to prove the Army wrong about them. Over the next 6 months, the 93rd will fight in some of the Pacific's most brutal conditions: jungle patrols, bunker assaults, hand-to-hand combat in terrain where artillery and air support can't reach. They'll face Japanese banzai charges, sniper fire, and tropical diseases that hospitalize more men than enemy action. The division suffers over 1,400 casualties on an island the Army said was secured. They kill an estimated 3,000 Japanese soldiers in combat. Army commanders said would be light resistance. When the 93rd leaves Bougainville, Japanese commanders request information about the Negro Division. They want to know who these soldiers were, because their intelligence said black American soldiers weren't combat effective. This is the 93rd Infantry Division, the first black division in combat, fighting a war the Army didn't think they could handle, and facing an enemy that learned the Army was wrong. If you want military history that shows what soldiers accomplished when institutions doubted them, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. This division story was deliberately minimized for 50 years. The 93rd Infantry Division activates in May 1942 at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Like the 92nd Infantry Division, the 93rd is a segregated unit. Black enlisted men, mostly white officers above company level. The division adopts the blue helmet insignia, a blue French Adrian helmet on their shoulder patch, honoring the 93rd Division of World War I that fought with French forces. The division trains for 2 years in Arizona and California. Standard infantry training, weapons qualification, small unit tactics, physical conditioning. The soldiers expect deployment to Europe or North Africa, the major theaters where American forces are fighting. In January 1944, the War Department makes a different decision. The 93rd will deploy to the Pacific Theater. The assignment reflects military politics more than tactical necessity. The Army doesn't want black combat divisions in Europe where they might interact with white European civilians. The Pacific, with fewer white populations and less political scrutiny, seems safer. The division deploys in pieces, not as a complete unit. This decision is deliberate. The Army doesn't trust a full black division under black leadership. Instead, regiments deploy separately to different islands, attached to white divisions or corps commands. The 25th Infantry Regiment, part of the 93rd, deploys to Bougainville in March 1944. The 24th Infantry Regiment goes to Treasury Islands. The 93rd never fights as a complete division. a command decision that fragments their combat power and limits their tactical impact. Bougainville in 1944 is officially secured. American forces invaded in November 1943, established a defensive perimeter around several airfields, and bypassed approximately 40,000 Japanese troops in the island's interior. The strategy? Contain enemy forces, use the airfields to support operations elsewhere, and let isolated Japanese troops wither on the vine. This containment strategy requires infantry to patrol the perimeter, defend against Japanese probing attacks, and prevent enemy forces from threatening the airfields. It's the mission assigned to the 25th Infantry Regiment when they arrive in March. The Army describes this as mopping up, light combat against disorganized, starving Japanese remnants. Major General Oscar Griswold, commanding 14th Corps, tells the 25th's officers, "Your men will gain combat experience in a relatively safe environment before potential deployment to more intense operations." The characterization is wrong on every point. Japanese forces on Bougainville are not disorganized remnants. They are veteran troops from the 6th Division, experienced soldiers who fought in China and early Pacific campaigns. They're hungry and undersupplied due to American naval blockade, but they're disciplined, well-armed, and determined to hold their positions. More significantly, Japanese commanders on Bougainville plan a major counteroffensive in March 1944, exactly when the 25th Infantry Regiment arrives. Japanese forces will attack the American perimeter with 3 divisions, attempting to overrun the airfields and destroy American positions. The 25th Infantry Regiment doesn't arrive for mopping up. They arrive in time for the largest Japanese offensive in the Solomons Campaign. The Japanese offensive begins March 8, 1944, 3 days after the 25th Infantry Regiment completes deployment to Bougainville. Approximately 15,000 Japanese soldiers attack American defensive positions along the Torokina River perimeter. The assault comes in waves. Infantry charges supported by artillery, followed by infiltration teams, then banzai attacks when defenses weaken. The 25th Infantry holds positions on the perimeter's southern sector. Companies A, B, and C defend a mile-long front along the Mavavia River, a tributary feeding into the Torokina. The positions consist of foxholes, sandbag bunkers, and machine gun nests carved out of jungle. At 6 a.m. on March 8th, Japanese artillery opens fire on American positions. Shells impact along the defensive line for 30 minutes, prep fire designed to suppress defenders before the assault. When the barrage lifts, Japanese infantry emerge from the jungle. They advance in waves, crossing open ground toward American foxholes. Soldiers from the 25th open fire with rifles, machine guns, and mortars. The first wave falters under American fire. Japanese soldiers take cover, regroup, and attack again. The second wave reaches American wire obstacles before being stopped. The third wave breaks through in 2 places, reaching American foxholes before being driven back in hand-to-hand fighting. Private James Robinson, Company A, later describes the fighting. "They kept coming. We'd shoot them down and more would come. They'd get close enough to throw grenades. We threw grenades back. Some of them reached our foxholes. We fought with rifle butts, knives, anything. This wasn't mopping up. This was survival." The assault continues all day. Japanese forces probe the line, looking for weak points. When they find gaps, they exploit them. American soldiers counterattack, driving penetrations back, restoring the line. By nightfall, March 8th, the line holds. Japanese forces withdraw to covered positions. American casualties? 34 killed, 162 wounded in the 25th Infantry Regiment alone. Japanese casualties? Estimated 400 to 600 killed. The next morning, Japanese forces attack again. March 9th brings heavier assaults. Japanese commanders commit reserve forces, attacking multiple points simultaneously. The 25th Infantry's defensive line bends, but doesn't break. Soldiers hold foxholes under sustained fire, call in artillery support when Japanese forces mass, and mount counterattacks when positions are threatened. This is the story of soldiers who faced the Pacific's brutal reality, while their institution dismissed them as incapable. If you want military history that shows combat as soldiers experienced it, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. The 93rd fought battles the Army never acknowledged. The battle continues through mid-March. Japanese attacks come daily, sometimes multiple times per day. The pattern repeats. Artillery preparation, infantry assault, hand-to-hand combat when Japanese soldiers reach American positions, withdrawal after sustaining casualties, then renewed attacks hours later. The 25th Infantry Regiment holds every position assigned. No Japanese breakthrough occurs in their sector. Soldiers fight for 2 weeks straight, sleeping in foxholes between attacks, eating cold rations when supply lines reach them, treating wounded in aid stations carved out of jungle undergrowth. American artillery and air support play crucial roles. When Japanese forces mass for attacks, American artillery fires pre-registered concentrations, breaking up formations before they reach the line. Air support strikes Japanese supply routes, reducing ammunition and food reaching forward positions. But artillery and air power don't hold the line. Infantry does. Soldiers in foxholes, firing rifles at attacking soldiers 50 yards away, make the difference between holding and breaking. By March 25th, Japanese forces exhaust their offensive capability. Casualties, ammunition shortages, and failed attacks convince Japanese commanders the offensive cannot succeed. They order withdrawal to defensive positions in Bougainville's interior. The battle ends. American forces hold the perimeter. The airfields remain operational. Japanese forces retreat into the jungle, returning to defensive posture. The 25th Infantry Regiment's casualties for March: 97 killed, 347 wounded. This represents nearly 15% of the regiment's strength, casualty rates comparable to regiments fighting at Tarawa, Saipan, and other intense Pacific battles. The Army's official assessment: the 25th Infantry Regiment performed adequately in limited action on Bougainville. After the March offensive ends, the 93rd Infantry Division's mission shifts to aggressive patrolling. The regiment sends daily patrols into the jungle beyond the perimeter. Missions vary: reconnaissance to locate Japanese positions, ambush patrols to interdict enemy supply routes, combat patrols to destroy enemy bunkers and fortifications. Jungle patrol is among the most dangerous infantry work. Visibility measures in feet. Japanese snipers tie themselves into trees, firing single shots, then disappearing. Booby traps line trails, grenades rigged to vines, buried explosives triggered by tripwires, sharpened bamboo stakes in concealed pits. Disease kills more soldiers than combat. Malaria hospitalizes hundreds. Dengue fever Dysentery and tropical infections debilitate men faster than Japanese bullets. Medics treat more patients for disease than wounds. Despite these conditions, the 25th Infantry maintains patrol schedules through summer 1944. Squads and platoons move through jungle, locate Japanese positions, call artillery fire, and withdraw. Larger patrols assault bunker complexes, using flamethrowers and demolition charges to destroy fortified positions. Japanese forces adapt their tactics. They avoid direct combat with American patrols, preferring ambush and infiltration. Japanese soldiers snipe at Americans, then withdraw before counterfire arrives. They probe American positions at night, testing defenses, looking for weaknesses. The psychological pressure is constant. Every movement might trigger an ambush. Every tree might hide a sniper. Sleep comes in brief intervals between alerts. Soldiers develop thousand-yard stares, the exhaustion visible in photographs from the period. Through all this, the 25th Infantry continues operations. Patrol reports document hundreds of contacts with Japanese forces, brief firefights, ambushes, bunker assaults. The fighting doesn't make headlines like Iwo Jima or Okinawa, but soldiers die just as dead. In July 1944, the 24th Infantry Regiment, another regiment from the 93rd Division, joins operations on Bougainville. The two regiments coordinate patrols, expanding pressure on Japanese positions. The missions remain the same: locate enemy forces, destroy bunkers, prevent Japanese attacks on the perimeter. By October 1944, the 93rd Infantry Division's regiments have been on Bougainville for 7 months. They fought in sustained combat that official reports minimize as mopping up and limited action. Casualty figures tell a different story. The division suffers over 1,400 casualties on Bougainville, killed, wounded, missing, or medically evacuated. For context, that's more casualties than some divisions suffered in entire campaigns in Europe. Japanese casualties are harder to quantify. American estimates suggest 3,000 to 4,000 Japanese soldiers killed in combat with 93rd Division units. Japanese records from Bougainville are incomplete, but post-war assessments confirm heavy losses during the March offensive and subsequent patrol actions. Japanese military intelligence tracked American units throughout the Pacific War. Intelligence officers analyzed American tactics, identified division capabilities, and assessed unit effectiveness. Documents captured after the war reveal Japanese assessments of American forces. These documents provide objective evaluation, enemy analysis based on combat performance, not racial prejudice. Japanese intelligence reports about the 93rd Infantry Division describe Negro units fighting on Bougainville. The reports note, American Negro infantry demonstrate aggressive patrolling and strong defensive capability. Units maintain cohesion under fire. Artillery support is well coordinated. Individual soldiers show determination in close combat. These assessments match Japanese evaluations of white American divisions. Japanese intelligence doesn't identify racial differences in combat effectiveness. They describe tactical capabilities, leadership quality, and firepower integration. One captured document from the 6th Division headquarters on Bougainville asks for clarification about the Negro Division. Japanese officers had been told by their intelligence services that black American soldiers were poorly trained and unwilling to fight. Their combat experience contradicted this assessment. They wanted to know if intelligence was wrong or if these particular soldiers were exceptional. The question itself reveals the disconnect between prejudiced assumptions and combat reality. Japanese officers experienced capable soldiers who held defensive positions, conducted aggressive patrols, and inflicted significant casualties. This performance contradicted what their intelligence predicted. American military leadership drew different conclusions from the same evidence. After the Bougainville campaign, 14th Corps Headquarters evaluates the 93rd Infantry Division's performance. The assessment acknowledges the division completed assigned missions and demonstrated satisfactory performance in combat operations. This lukewarm evaluation appears in official reports, shaping perceptions of the division's capabilities. The Army characterizes the 93rd's performance as adequate but unexceptional, soldiers who did their jobs without distinction. Individual unit commanders tell different stories. Company and battalion officers who led soldiers in combat write after-action reports praising their troops' courage, initiative, and tactical skill. These reports describe soldiers advancing under fire, holding positions against attacks, and accomplishing difficult missions in terrible conditions. But these positive assessments don't reach higher headquarters or influence Army policy about black soldiers' combat capabilities. The institutional narrative remains. Black soldiers can handle limited missions, but aren't suitable for sustained, intense combat. The 93rd's soldiers know better. They fought for 7 months in conditions as difficult as any in the Pacific. They faced veteran Japanese troops, jungle terrain, tropical disease, and institutional skepticism. They proved themselves repeatedly, to the enemy if not to their own command. The 93rd Infantry Division leaves Bougainville in January 1945. Elements of the division redeploy to Morotai and later participate in operations in the Philippines. The division never fights as a complete unit. Regiments remain scattered across the Pacific, attached to different corps and operating independently. In the Philippines, elements of the 93rd conduct combat operations on Mindanao and other southern islands. They face Japanese defenders in jungle and mountain terrain, fighting battles similar to Bougainville, aggressive patrols, bunker assaults, defensive positions against infiltration attacks. The war ends in August 1945. The 93rd Infantry Division returns to the United States and deactivates in 1946. The division's combat record includes 7 months sustained combat on Bougainville, operations in the Philippines, 1,400 plus casualties, estimated 3,000 plus enemy killed, Presidential Unit Citation for Bougainville service. Despite this record, the 93rd remains obscure in Pacific War histories. Books about Bougainville mention the Marine invasion and Army divisions that followed, but rarely discuss the 93rd's 7-month campaign. The division's contributions disappear from the historical narrative. This erasure serves institutional purposes. The Army in the 1940s and 1950s resists integration, citing evidence that black soldiers underperform in combat. The 93rd's success contradicts this narrative, so it gets minimized. Official histories describe the 93rd as performing mopping up operations, phrasing that diminishes the intensity and significance of their combat. Casualties are acknowledged, but framed as evidence of inexperience rather than sustained fighting against capable enemy forces. Soldiers from the 93rd return home to segregated America. They fought for their country in the Pacific's worst conditions. They proved themselves against a determined enemy. They came home to buses where they had to sit in the back
and restaurants that wouldn't serve them. Many soldiers don't discuss their service. The contrast between what they endured overseas and how they're treated at home is too painful. Some talk about the war only with other veterans who understand. In 1996, when the Army reviews World War II combat records to identify racial discrimination in awards, researchers examine the 93rd Infantry Division. They find patterns. White soldiers in the division received Silver Stars and Distinguished Service Crosses for actions that earned black soldiers Bronze Stars or no decoration at all. The review leads to upgraded awards for some soldiers, though many recipients are deceased by 1996. In 2024, historians researching Pacific War combat still struggle to find detailed information about the 93rd Infantry Division. Official records exist, but narrative histories omit the division or mention it briefly. The story of the 1st Black Division in combat remains largely untold. The 93rd Infantry Division proved what institutional racism denied. Black soldiers could fight as effectively as any soldiers in the American military. They faced a capable enemy in terrible conditions and accomplished every mission assigned. It took 60 years for military historians to acknowledge what Japanese commanders on Bougainville knew in 1944. These soldiers were formidable.